What's up everybody? Welcome back to our channel. In this video, I'm going to talk about how to prepare your body for thru hiking specifically. If you subscribe to our channel and you're here for our travel vlogs, then that comes out on Wednesday and this is a bonus educational video. So if you're interested in how to prepare your body for thru hiking, watch on, and if not, our vlog will be out on Wednesdays. Let's dive into it. Why am I talking about how to prepare your body for hiking? What gives me the expertise? Well, I have a master's degree in physical therapy, which means I'm an expert in understanding how the body moves. So I deeply understand the musculoskeletal system, muscles, bones, joints, ligaments, tendons of your body. The vast majority of injuries that hikers experience are to the musculoskeletal system. So if you've ever had a joint like sore knees or ankles that have bothered you, that's where physiotherapists are experts at helping you. I have that expertise as a professional physiotherapist, but I'm also a thru hiker. I thru hiked the Great Divide Trail back in 2020, and I documented that over the course of 7 different videos. And I experienced firsthand what your body needs to do in order to complete a thru hike, both physically and mentally. So I also bring my expertise as a thru hiker into this discussion. The first thing that you want to understand about preparing for thru hiking is actually understanding that you can prevent injuries before they happen. A lot of people don't know that this is possible, but I really want you to know that there are things that you can do to dramatically decrease your risk of developing an injury while hiking. There are things called risk factors that we can identify. So you have risk factors that are internal to your body, so physical risk factors like muscle weakness, balance issues, and mental risk factors like confidence issues, ego issues, mental health. And those factors can increase your risk of injury. But there are also external risk factors. So external risk factors are things outside of your body that your body has to interact with. So that's gear, footwear, the environment, weather, visibility, and other people around you. In order for you to address your risk factors and decrease your injury risk, there are a few steps you can take. The first thing that you can do is you can book a one-on-one session with a physiotherapist. Your physiotherapist can assess you for risk factors associated with hiking injuries. Those physical risk factors are going to look like things like flexibility, muscle weakness, balance issues, proprioception issues. And you want to look for a physiotherapist who actually understands what you're trying to do. So ideally a physiotherapist who is a hiker or a thru hiker who has dived into the research in order to know exactly what injuries are most common with hiking, and then of course how we can prevent them. Once your physiotherapist has identified your specific weak points that you can work on to prevent injury, then you need to be dedicated to an exercise program that actually addresses those. So for example, if you have knee pain when you hike downhill, that's often an indication that your glute muscles are either too weak or they're not quite functioning how you want them when you're walking downhill. And so your physiotherapist might give you single leg squats or step downs or something to target that muscle so that you can start to strengthen it and get it more functional for hiking. Identifying it is one thing, but then addressing it is the most important aspect. Now that you know what you need to work on, working on strengthening and patterning those muscles so that you're using them in the best of your ability when you're out hiking. And that could be for any area of your body. So if you have recurrent issues with any area or things that you think might be an issue, seeing a physiotherapist is a great way to go. The other risk factor area is your mental risk factors. So this one you may actually want to work with a mental health professional about, especially if you know you have anything going on with your mental health, anything that you think could come up on your thru hike that you want support with. The other thing that's important to note is how your ego might factor in. So some of us, our ego might actually push us to do more than we're capable of doing in a day. So you get that summit lust and maybe you ignore signs that your body is telling you that it's not doing well that day, or signs that maybe that's not a good day to push, like maybe the terrain or the weather or your gear. And you ignore it because your ego is pulling you or pushing you towards that goal. Getting really honest with yourself about if you think your ego is going to get in the way, and then learning some strategies to deal with that is a really great way to decrease your risk factors. Another big factor is if you are someone who hikes to help your mental health. This is incredibly common, and so many people I've talked to who are into hiking, especially through hiking, really love to hike for their mental health, me included. And so if I have an injury or my body is telling me like, oh, this isn't feeling great, like maybe you should stop, I might push through that physical signal that my body is telling me because I want the mental health positive impacts from hiking. And so you're constantly sort of weighing these variables, like signs that maybe you should rest, or maybe today's not the best day for the hike because of other factors, but then kind of pushing past that because you really want those positive impacts for your mental health. This one is, of course, a bit of a more challenging one because there's so many nuances and so many things that could impact this experience for you. So again, maybe a mental health professional could help you with this. But a physiotherapist does have a role in this because if you do injure yourself, you might actually be able to do certain levels of hiking or certain types of exercise and get out in nature still without interrupting your injury healing. And that's where a physiotherapist can actually teach you how you can do that and still get those positive mental health benefits from still getting outside and moving your body. So this is definitely a tricky one, and having a team to support you with this can be incredibly helpful. And then when we're looking at external risk factors, we want to think about a few different things, and I'm going to cite some of the research here. So a pretty extensive study on Pacific Crest Trail thru hikers looked at injury rates based on many different factors. And what they found was that there were two different external factors that impacted injury rates in long distance hikers. The first thing is pack weight. So base pack weight impacted the amount of nerve-related irritation hikers experienced. So that, the technical term is paresthesia. Paresthesia in this study was described as numbness, burning, or tingling in the hands, legs, or feet. So almost like that pins and needles sensation, like if you fall asleep on your arm funny and you wake up and like you can't feel it and you start to move it and you get that pins and needles sensation. That sensation could be paresthesia. Numbness, like you touch and you can't feel as well. Tingling, burning sensations. And that is what we know to be nerve irritation. So nerve irritation rates were impacted by how heavy your pack was. So the lighter base pack weight, there were less rates of that paresthesia, and then the heavier pack weights, there was an increased rates of the paresthesia. What's interesting is that's the only type of injury that they found associated with different pack weights. So a lighter pack, so getting your base pack weight down, is incredibly helpful to decrease the risk of that paresthesia. However, it hasn't been shown to change rates of musculoskeletal injuries like aches, like muscles, strains, joint aches and pains, joint injuries, bone injuries. So I find that really interesting that there's only one type of injury that pack weight impacts. And I'm going to dive into a bit later in this video how you can train progressively with whatever pack weight you have to dramatically decrease your injury risk. The other external factor that this study found impacted paresthesia, so that's that numbness, burning, tingling sensation in the hands, legs, or feet, is footwear. And so what they found is that footwear type did impact the rates of this nerve irritation. And what they found is that the stiffer the footwear, so the hiking boots, led to an increased rate of this nerve irritation when compared to a less supportive shoe. So it dropped down as you went from hiking boots to hiking shoes, running shoes, sandals. The rates really decreased of how many people experience this nerve-related irritation. And so what we know about footwear is that the less supportive, the less likely you are to have nerve irritation. Footwear type only impacted one type of musculoskeletal injury. So that's muscles, bones, joints, ligaments, tendons. Surprisingly, muscle injuries, joint injuries, tendon injuries, None of those were impacted by footwear type. The only type of injury that was stress fractures to the bones of the feet, and the only hikers that experienced stress fractures were those that hiked in sandals. Nobody else reported having a stress fracture. So when I dove deeper into this, I was like, what? I thought footwear type was so important for musculoskeletal injuries. Like, as a physiotherapist, I was thinking more supportive boots. Shouldn't that decrease ankle sprain rates, for example? The research actually doesn't support that. So if you're an individual who you really want to have that extra support for your ankle to feel more secure and you've noticed that helps you, that's completely valid. And on an individual basis, that absolutely could be the case for you. However, if you're wondering what the research shows, the research actually doesn't show that wearing a stiffer boot changes ankle sprain rates. I dove into even more studies and found that the number one factor when it comes to footwear for injury prevention is fit. How well your footwear fits you is the most important thing when it comes to injury rates. So if you have improperly fitting footwear, you're more likely to sprain your ankle. If you have footwear that doesn't have a supportive enough insole, you're more likely to experience injuries to the skin of your foot and aches and pains all the way up your leg, all the way up to your lower back. And it helps with foot fatigue, so that's another big factor. And the final category of external risk factors that we know affects injury rates is environmental. So weather and the conditions and terrain. So what's really interesting is that scree and downhill slopes are where the injury rates are the highest. And when the weather changes, so it's slippery, low visibility, etc., that's when you're more likely to also experience an injury. And so, of course, for this, depending on your hike, depending on your thru hike, you might have to hike through bad weather. You likely will have to hike downhill and on loose or scree slopes at some point. And so if that's the case, you can't avoid that situation. However, if you're trying to manage your other risk factors like fatigue, ego, nutrition, your footwear fit, your pack, all of those factors, if you're managing those and trying to decrease your risk in those areas, then you're more likely to successfully navigate a poor weather day or difficult terrain. And this ties into a little bit planning your itinerary. So if you know you have to do a challenging section for you, then planning to hit that section before the end of the day, or maybe right after you've eaten or you've drank a bunch of water, that can actually help support your body and support your ability to not only make good decisions when you're in that technical region, but also it'll support your physical body to be able to manage that terrain a little bit better. So to recap, I went over internal risk factors and external risk factors that could increase your risk of becoming injured while hiking and how you can address those. So either with specific professionals or on your own, just addressing those factors. Now that we've talked about how to prevent injury, I want to translate that into how to actually train properly. So yes, those risk factors I talked to you about are important, but the most important factor for injury prevention and prepping your body successfully is a proper training schedule. So not doing too much too fast. So not just starting the trail with no training, and slowly increasing what your body can handle leading up to the start of your thru hike. So if you're seeing this video several months before your thru hike, that's awesome. If you're seeing this video the day before, you're probably not going to have time to implement it. But there are certain principles that you can apply at any point in your training schedule or in your thru hike in order to best support your body. I want to explain to you how your body adapts to exercise. Your muscles attach to your bones, and in order to move your bones, your muscles contract, pull on your bones through your tendons, and move them around. So when you're walking, you're doing multiple muscles are doing that all at the same time as you're moving. And so if you are used to walking for half an hour per day, that's your normal routine, then your muscles, bones, and joints are used to that amount of volume of exercise. So they're incredibly strong and they're good at doing 30 minutes of that specific movement. When we ask them to do more, so say you go for an hour-long walk, your systems are not going to be used to that. So you do the hour walk, but they're like, whoa, I'm not used to this. This is a lot more than I'm used to. Okay, this is a sign that maybe I'm going to need to be doing hour-long walks. And so that stimulus actually tells your muscles, tendons, joints, bones, stimulates those regions to actually start to strengthen themselves more. Changes will actually occur within those structures in order to be able to manage that new activity amount or that new type of activity you're asking it to do. And so if you did an hour walk that night, there's going to be some repair happening. The muscles are going to be maybe building themselves a little bit stronger so that if you did an hour walk the next day, they're a little bit more used to it. And then the next day, they're a little bit more used to it. And they'll slowly adapt to the demand you're asking them to do. However, if you are used to walking half an hour and then tomorrow you walk 8 hours with a pack on, that is such a dramatic difference from what your systems, your muscles and everything is used to, that they could actually experience an injury during that time. So they haven't had that slow intro to it. They haven't been able to build themselves up to actually be able to manage it. And so they can strain, you can get an ache, you can get an injury because they're like, whoa, I have not had any time to prepare for this and I'm not ready. The amazing thing about this knowledge though is that you know you can actually do something in order to prepare your body for that. So let's talk specifically about through hiking. If you want to through hike and your goal is to hike 20 kilometers per day, and right now you're comfortable hiking 5 kilometers per day, and let's say your hike starts in 3 months. Well, what you want to do is you actually want to slowly build up how long you can hike for over the course of 3 months. So you don't actually want to start hiking 20 kilometers per day today and then do that all the way up to your hike, because if you're used to 5 and you jump to 20, at some point in that first little bit of training, or actually at some point during the training, something could fail. So your muscle could sprain, your joint could get achy, you could get an injury because you went from this level and jumped too quickly to that next level. What you want to do instead is over the course of 3 months, build from 5K per day to 20K per day. And so halfway through, you're going to want to be around that halfway point. So maybe you're able to do 12.5K per day. And then, so that's going to be in a month and a half, you can do 12.5K. And then in another month and a half, you're going to be able to do 20K. And so if you're going from 5K to 12.5K over the course of a month and a half, then you're probably going to want to add a kilometer per week, a kilometer or so per week. And then you're going to build up again up to that 20K point. So you're doing that slow build over 3 months instead of going from 5K to 20K and then just doing that every single day, because that's a lot harder on your body actually than slowly ramping up. And when you slowly ramp up, not only can your body have time to adapt and it'll be able to really protect itself from injury, but it'll also feel better and easier for you and more enjoyable. So it's like a win-win. The other thing when it comes to through hiking that you want to make sure you're doing is you want to ramp up how much weight you can carry as well. You want to figure out soon how heavy you think your pack is going to be. And then starting today or tomorrow, you want to start slowly increasing how much weight you can carry when you're going out on your walks as well. So you're ramping up your weight and you're slowly ramping up your distance. And sometimes if you have enough time, you might want to increase your distance 1 week and then the pack weight the next, and sort of not increase both at the same time would be the ideal. But if you don't have time, then you can slowly increase them at the same time. And so maybe you start wearing your pack with like 1 item in it, and then 2 items the next week, then 3, and slowly each week you're adding an item to your pack, again, to allow your body to adapt to this new load in your pack. And so that's going to be stimulating things that you probably weren't doing before. Those 2 things, so slowly ramping up your distance, slowly ramping up your pack weight, are probably the most important things to incorporate into your training plan on how you're going to do that slowly and progressively. Regardless of your pack weight, regardless of your footwear type, if you're practicing using the pack, ramping up your pack weight, doing your walking with the footwear you're going to do your through hiking in, then you're doing the absolute best supportive thing for your body by slowly introducing it to the exact movement you want it to do. The other thing that I always recommend is doing a test hike about a month before you start your thru hike. Again, you may or may not have time for that. However, if you can do a hike that would be similar to maybe a section hike, so oftentimes in thru hiking you hike in sections, so you'll do like 6 days and then have 1 day off, and then another 6 or 7 days and day off. So if you could replicate a section hike and get out and do with all of your gear, similar terrain, and practice it and see how your body responds. So if you're training and ramping up to that point, ideally you're going to ramp up to being able to carry your full pack weight and do the distances you need to do for the training hike before you go out on the training hike. Once you do that test hike, then you know how your body responded. So if your knee was bugging you, your shoulder was bugging you, then you know, and you can address that with your physiotherapist for the month leading up to the actual start of your thru hike. So it gives you information that you might not have been able to glean otherwise. I know that this isn't possible for everyone with time off and schedules and everything, but if it's possible for you to do even a weekend one, that's going to give you some information about how your body handles it. Another really important factor to consider is how you plan your itinerary. So if you are starting your thru hike tomorrow, this is a tip that you can apply as well. When you're doing your thru hike, you want to plan a slow start to your thru hike as well. So for example, if you know you can hike 30 kilometers per day and that's what you want to try to do throughout most of the hike, then starting off with days that are less than 30 kilometers and slowly building over the course of the first week or two of your thru hike can be incredibly supportive for your body. Because even if you've trained all the way up and you've followed everything perfectly, the best practice for thru hiking is thru hiking. So it's going to be specifically different because you're on your thru hike. So for example, when I started the Great Divide Trail, I did 15K days for the first few days, then 20K, then 25, and then I got up to 30K, I think by day 8, and 30K was the max I thought I would be hiking per day. Interestingly, by the end of the hike, because I'd been doing 30K, 35K days sometimes, I did a 40K day, no problem. My body was fine. So yeah, you can definitely ramp up as you go through your hike. And I think this is something that we don't often consider when planning a thru hike. We just think, okay, I can do 25K a day, so that's what I'm going to do every single day. And actually, if you're worried about not being able to get it done in the time frame you've set out, if you do 15K days at the start, you can actually probably do 30 or 35K days at the end because you've prepped your body. And so any kilometers you're missing at the start because you're doing less than you thought you would, you can probably add those to the end of your hike and your body will be so used to thru hiking that it should be able to manage it just fine then. But your body won't be able to manage those kilometers as well at the start because it's brand new. It still hasn't had that time to adapt and modify and build itself stronger to be able to handle that. So if overall you're going to hike 30Ks per day, take 5K or 10K off of some of the first week of hiking and maybe add it to the end, and you should have a really good structure for how you can ramp yourself into your normal hiking pace and then probably feel so good, so strong that it's almost easy to increase your K by the end. All right, so to recap, the best way to prepare your body for hiking is to start by addressing your risk factors. So for your physical risk factors, a physiotherapist who understands thru hiking is the best person to help you with that. For your mental risk factors, you may want to work with a mental health professional. For your gear, you may want to help get your footwear fitted by someone in a store who's really knowledgeable. And you want to make sure that your gear fits you well, and a physiotherapist can also help with that. You want to make sure you're managing all your other factors well when you know you're doing terrain that's difficult for you. And then once you've addressed your risk factors and maybe you have a program or a plan that you can work on your specific risk factors, then you also want to work on your progressive training program where you're slowly ramping up to the start of your thru hike. And then when you're doing your thru hike, also planning in a slow start to that thru hike so you're not doing your maximal distance right from the start. Those are the absolute best ways that we know based on research and my experience as a physiotherapist and a thru hiker, how to prepare for a thru hike. If you're looking for help preparing for your thru hike, at my physiotherapy business called Karen Physiotherapy, we see everyone online and we work with thru hikers. So if you want to book with one of us, you can visit the link in the description of this video and we'd be happy to help you. If you're also looking for more information about itinerary planning or details on my Great Divide Trail thru hike, you can visit our blog. I'll also make sure that's in the description of the video. And you can also go back and watch our GDT videos. I'll put them here for you to go and watch that playlist. Let me know if any questions came up as I went through this. Write them in the comments below. If you found this helpful, give us a thumbs up. And if you want to subscribe so you get more information like this, then that would be awesome. Or if you want to follow our travels, we're currently traveling in our van in Europe full time. All right, happy hiking. Bye.